Hi, I'm Julie Hill. I teach percussion at the University of Tennessee at Martin. I'm here today to give you some helpful hints on the 9 percussion instruments at the back of the snare drummer's toolbox. I want you to keep 3 things in mind as we talk about these 9 instruments today. First of all, listen to the ensemble in which you're performing. That's really important. Number 2, think about the sound that you want to produce. Make it your sound. And number 3, always trust your ears and you'll do fine. Let's start with the bass drum. For the concert bass drum, general playing area is going to be slightly off-center, as with most membranophones. This will give you a sustained sound. If you want a more pointed sound, we'll go into the center. More staccato, more marcato sound. Dampening the bass drum is really important. You have a couple of options here. You can use your left hand on the non-playing side. That dries up the sound a little. You can also get a stool or a chair nearby and apply different amounts of pressure with your knee in combination with your left hand. I'm pressing pretty hard right now. That's a dry sound. Take some pressure off my knee so I can really control back to the dampened sound by using different amounts of pressure. All right, so then if we're playing with 2 mallets, here it's hard to use your left hand to dampen, so a towel and 2 clips nearby can be very handy. You can take it off quickly for the sustained sound again. For dampening, always listen to the ensemble. If the ensemble is resting, you should be silent too. Let's talk about tuning just a little bit. I like to have the heads the same sound more or less, the same pitch, just get it where it sounds good, and then tune the opposite head the same way. As with the snare drum, you can put your finger in the center to dampen or take some of the sustain out, and then just check each lug point and make adjustments to have the drum in tune with itself. We also want to have an option of a cannon shot. Cannon shot dead center on the drum. Makes the most marcato sound of all. You can play soft on the cannon shot for a more articulate sound. For rolls on bass drum, play single stroke rolls. I'm going to start with a matched grip with the mallet heads far apart. Listen how the sound changes as I bring the heads closer together. And far apart again. A more legato sound far apart. A more staccato sound or pointed sound when the heads are close together. You can use traditional grip with this as well. I'm going to increase the dynamic now and listen to how the sound changes as I change the mallet head distance. Don't roll too fast on the bass drum. Listen to the ensemble, and again, just trust your ears. Let's move on to crash cymbals. In talking about crash cymbals, the first thing to consider is the grip on the cymbals. You have to have a good grip. Cymbals can be heavy, so you can lose control easily. If you've got those nice pads on the cymbals, take them off. They make your hands feel great, but they make the cymbals sound really bad. We want our cymbal plates to vibrate as much as possible. In gripping the cymbal, take your dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so that would be my right hand, and put your index finger under the strap right on top of the bell. Then you want to put your thumb on top and grip tightly, trying to keep as much of your hand as possible off the cymbal bell because, again, we want it to vibrate. If you have this much room, you're not going to have any control of the cymbal. So you want it to be really tight, and just test that by moving the cymbal to see if you have good control of it. Then we grab the other cymbal with the non-dominant hand Then we have a little pre-shot routine like we're playing golf to go through here. Take your non-dominant elbow, that's my left elbow, and I'm gonna put it into my stomach. Don't hurt yourself, but put it into your stomach. And then the non-dominant cymbal, look at it and make sure it's not on your clothing or against your stomach, because that will take away from the vibration of the cymbal bell. All right, I'm looking good there. Now we have to get the angle of the cymbal right as well. We don't want it to be flat and not vertical. Let's go halfway in between. Let's get that angle. There we go, not touching the clothing, and I bring my dominant hand on top. We're gonna play cymbals with a flam technique, just like you learned on the snare drum. We do this so we can activate both cymbals, and also so we don't get an air pocket and trap air in our cymbals. So we're gonna shoot for a flam stroke here. We're gonna consider volume or dynamics versus speed with all of our techniques on cymbals and a lot of our other instruments today. Let's practice one crash forte on the cymbals and listen for the flam sound. Notice to dampen, I just brought the cymbals into my clothing. Now I'm going to play soft with these cymbals. Notice the blades of the cymbals are close together now. In the forte crash, did you notice how far apart my cymbal plates were? From this distance, I can make a fortissimo crash. I never need to play the cymbals this far apart. You'll probably miss your target and you won't get a good sound. Again, one more forte crash. Notice the distance, listen for the flam sound. And dampening. I'm going to play fast now and loud, and this takes a little bit of energy. Here's a fast segment, forte. That can get a little exhausting after a while, so you may need to choose another set of cymbals. I'm playing with 18-inch cymbals right now. Sound great, but they get a little heavy when you're playing those faster passages. I'm going to take a quick switch to some 16-inch crash cymbals here. You can't use these for everything because you don't get the same weight of the sound that you get with the 18-inch cymbals, but for some light sounds, I can use my 16-inch cymbals. Here's a loud forte crash on the 16-inch cymbals. Very different sound, as you can see. Now I'm going to play fast and piano. Now I don't need the flam sound for this. No air will get caught. Let's look at the crash choke. We're going to need that when we play eighth notes or shorter rhythms followed by rest. Here's a crash choke demonstration. And again, rule number one, listen to the ensemble, and then you'll know where to dampen the cymbals. For marching band, we often need a hi-hat technique. So let me demonstrate that. I'm going to put the cymbals together. And make a hi-hat sound. Be careful not to pinch your belly when you do that one. You may also need to use both sets of cymbals. I hope that you have two pair of crash cymbals in your band room at least. Let's say I need to go from a soft, lighter section to a large forte crash. And that's the crash cymbals. Next, let's move on to suspended cymbals. Suspended cymbals are a matter of personal taste, just like choosing a Dr. Pepper or a Coca-Cola. So you don't want to just grab the first one that you see. Also important is the stand that it rests on. The cymbal stand is really kind of like a Christmas tree. You need garland, you need lights, and you need ornaments to make it look good and to make it sound good in this case. So we need two felts, a washer, a sleeve, and a wing nut. If you're missing any of those vital elements, or if your cymbal has a crack in it, you may have a sound like this. Not so good. We want to check for unwanted sounds before we ever play the suspended cymbal. So make sure you test it out before your concert or your rehearsal and check for loose wing nuts or other parts that might be vibrating on the cymbal. Next, you want to choose your implement carefully. The smaller the cymbal, the smaller the implement. I've got small mallets, larger mallets, and snare drum sticks. Let's play a roll on the suspended cymbal. I'm going to start with my smaller cymbal, and oftentimes I hear rolls too fast on cymbal. Let the cymbal vibrate, let it sustain. Roll slowly. You can speed up your roll a little bit as you crescendo to give the crescendo a little bit of extra energy. I'm going to move to a larger cymbal. Very different sound. I'm playing on the very edge, or the lip, as they call it, of the cymbal. I can also play a crash and choke like we did with crash cymbals. And I can play with sticks. Can play on the lip. Can play with the bead or the shaft. I can also play on the bell of the cymbal. That's with the bead or with the shaft again. Makes kind of a chunkier sound. I can also play a ride cymbal pattern, like you're playing drum set. That's a suspended cymbal. The triangle. Much like suspended cymbal, all parts must be in working order to produce a good tone on the triangle. You need some key elements here. A good clip. There are many different styles that you can get. You need a string. The string is really important. The string doesn't need to be too thick, something much like fishing line, and it needs to be tied pretty close to the top of the clip. It can't be touching it because it'll dampen it, but if it's too far away, the triangle will spin and you won't be able to control it. You of course need a good triangle, and actually hopefully 2 or more triangles so you have some options. And then you also need beaters. For triangle beaters, if you only have one beater, it's like having one triangle. You're only going to have one sound. So make sure that you have a variety of beaters so you can make light sounds or heavier sounds. If you're missing any one of these elements, you could end up with something like this. Now you may laugh at this, but I was in middle school band as well, and a shoestring does not make for a good triangle string. It's too thick, it dampens the triangle, and for a beater, if you've lost your triangle beaters, get some more and get some organization going. If you don't have a triangle bag, you can just use a Ziploc and find a place to keep them in your percussion table. Being organized is a really, really important part of being a good percussionist. So here's what a long string and an improper implement can do for the triangle. You're going to end up chasing the triangle around. Not a great sound. Let's move back to a larger triangle where we do have all the things that we need. Let's talk about the actual technique in playing the triangle. Well, let's look at the angle and the playing area. Those are the two things to consider. Probably play on the side opposite the gap or the hole, that would be this side, or the bottom. That makes slightly different sounds. You have two options with the angle of the beater. Option 1 is this angle, and it makes a very pure tone or a single sound. Let's listen. Now on the opposite side. Now I'm going to change the angle and listen to the sound's a little blurry, and it's because I'm getting more overtones if I take my angle and drop to here. Now I'm going to play with this angle on the bottom and on the side. It shimmers just a little bit more. Again, it's a personal choice, so you choose. Now, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about dampening. For dampening on the triangle, notice, just like with crash cymbals, you don't want your skin to be touching the triangle really, because that's going to dampen the sound. But I also don't want to keep my hand really far away. So I'm going to keep it close, and then I can dampen quickly. You don't always want to dampen when there are rests on the music. Make sure the rule is always listen to the ensemble in which you're performing. Now, that's a common pattern you're going to find on triangle. How do you know when to dampen and when not to? It should be notated on your music. Now let's choose some different implements and some different triangles. Let's have some fun with it. It's like choosing the difference between a Coca-Cola and a Dr. Pepper. You like what you like. So let's see what we like. Here's one of my smallest beaters with a large triangle. You don't just have to use a large beater with a large triangle and vice versa. You have the choice. Let's listen to the sound. Now I'll use the large triangle and a large beater. Let's do the same thing and test a smaller triangle with a small beater. And with a larger beater. Very different sound. Which one's right or wrong? There is nothing wrong, you just make a choice. Next, this is a trick I didn't learn for some years, and it really helped my triangle playing a lot, especially if I was nervous. If you have fast passages that you need to play, here's something you can do. If you look at this triangle here, I've got it turned upside down with the bottom end on top, and it's suspended by 2 equal clips. That frees up my hands to use 2 equal beaters, and then I can play fast passages or rolls just like I'm playing a snare drum. Makes life a lot easier. You can also roll, if you don't have 2 clips, with 1 triangle. Don't call the cowboys in, like you've seen in those old westerns. Play in the corner or up the top. But again, if you're nervous and you have a slightly uneven sound, you may want to go for the 2 beaters on 1 instrument. Here's one other trick. Soft playing on triangle can be deadly, especially if you have a solo moment at the end of a piece. You've got the triangle raised and everybody's watching you. They're waiting for the sound they know you're going to play, and this happens. And you miss it. It's happened to me. Here's what you can do. Fall through the triangle or play through the triangle. And you'll never miss it. Last but not least, make sure and look at the conductor all the time when you're playing the triangle. You can look above the triangle, or better yet, look at him through the hole. Hello! Then you can watch the conductor all the time and still see the triangle and not miss it. And that's the triangle. The tambourine. The first step that you need in playing great tambourine is to have a great instrument with a head on it. Tambourines do require some maintenance from time to time, based on where you live and based on the weather. Rainy days can really wreak havoc on a tambourine. If your head has gotten loose and crunchy like this, you're not going to make a very good sound on the instrument. But don't throw the tambourine away. You can take it outside on a sunny day, let it sit, and the head will actually tighten again. Or if it's a rainy day and you've got a concert, keep a hairdryer in your percussion table and put the hairdryer close to the head for a few minutes, and that will tighten the head. Setup routine is really crucial on tambourine because there is one thing you cannot hide in a quiet moment with the rest of the band, and that would be the sound of this. Very difficult to hide, even with a key cough at the right time. So, think about the technique that you need first. Do you need the tambourine to be inverted or upright? Also, you want to have it hang off of the edge of your table or your stand so that you can grab it and produce your first sound without making any noise. We want the sounds to be only the music on the page and not any extra sounds from setup. Let's go ahead and play the tambourine. I'm going to go ahead and change the angle, and we're going to use this angle much like we did on the cymbals. Upright, we get a little extra shimmer at the end. When it's flat, listen to this. Little extra shimmer at the end as well. So we want an angle, and then gravity is your friend. The jingles rest, and all we get are the sounds that we want and no unwanted sounds. Now, we're back to speed and dynamics in determining the technique. So let's go ahead with a few of these. Let's play soft and slow. I can do this a couple of different ways. I'm going to have one finger on top of a jingle, so I get lots of jingle sound. And remember, the tambourine is a drum, so I'm going to start with this sound and show you the difference, and then you can choose for yourself. So here's my hand on the head, muted, and one finger. Adding fingers, a little louder. Adding fingers. Now I'm going to take my hand off the head and I'll get some drum sound. Now if I have to play soft and fast, there's some problems with that, kind of like the triangle, because I'm holding it with one hand and only have one hand to play, and I can only go so fast. Doesn't make for a really good sound. So I can play, again I'm going to bring my chair, raise a knee, keep that same angle that I had so my jingles are resting, and now I can play just like a snare drum. Pretty cool. Next, let's go to forte playing, slow. Back to my original angle, forte play. I'm going to start with a fist technique. You can also use fingers. Here's my fist. You can leave your hand on the head or take it off if you want more drum head sound. I can also use my palm and slap it much like a conga sounds. Or take it off and get some drum head sound. Now if I want to play fast and forte, I'm limited again to one hand. That's about all I've got. So I need to make another fist. Again, I'm going to use my knee. I use my knee and my fist, and I'm really going to play right on the kneecap so I get the sound as close to my fist as possible. And I'm going to use this and make it sort of a left hand, really. And I'm going to invert the tambourine for this technique, so I would want to pick it up from this position so I don't have to make that sound. Now, I'm going to play head, knee, and now I'm going to play that fast. Another neat technique for tambourine, so that's fast and forte. We also need to talk about rolls. Rolls on tambourine are a little scary, kind of like rolls on triangle. Here's one I want to show you. This is called a thumb roll. If you have trouble with it at first, just keep trying. You'll eventually get it. It can sometimes be hard with a new tambourine if the head is a little slick. You want to lick your thumb, which I know is kind of gross, so you have to do it. Lick, wipe, wipe, wipe. I do the 3-wipe technique. And then you're just going to drive the car. That's the thumb roll. Now that's pretty soft, and you can play it a little bit louder, but if I really want a forte roll, I need to move to a shake roll. I'm going to go ahead and play this, as you will probably have to at first, with my dominant hand. You also need to develop a shake roll with your non-dominant hand as well, in case you don't have time to switch. Now for the shake roll, I've got it at my angle, my playing angle, but with my dominant hand, I'm going to knock it flat to start the roll, then I'm going to knock it back to stop the roll. Let's listen to the shake roll. If you want to play a shake roll soft, put your hand on the head, and that can give you some added control. For a crescendo, you can also start down low and raise it up. Remember, percussion is very visual. Sometimes you're going to need a rock-style tambourine, such as this one. These can be handheld, or you can buy an adapter that clamps onto this portion of the tambourine, and then it can be mounted on a cymbal stand, and you can play it with hands or sticks. Rock-style tambourines are great, and you need one, but it's not a substitute for a tambourine with a head, so make sure you have both in your band room. Rock-style tambourine, basically played like this. And that's the tambourine.